Hey guys, today we're going to be installing the Aldan American coilover conversion on the Crown Vic front end swap. Alright guys, so super excited about this kit. This is from Aldan American. It's the 300-336 part number coilover conversion for a Crown Vic front ends in a F100 swap. I'm sure you could use this in other things, but it's really designed to get the truck sitting at the right height with a Crown Vic front crossmember swap in these old F100s. Comes with everything you need: brackets, hardware, shocks, coils. They have a whole drop-down menu of coil spring weights that you can get, depending on what kind of engine you're going to be running. Obviously, we have to have a pretty heavy spring rate for this big 6-liter right here, but they also have some custom application stuff, so you can call, talk to the tech line, tell them what you're working with, give them the weights on the front end, and they'll be able to get you set up with exactly what you need. We went with the double adjustables because we want this truck to ride good. We want to have some good adjustment, and it's probably going to get driven a little bit hard, so might as well get the higher end stuff. We're going to dive right into it. It's a fairly straightforward install. First things first, though, we got to get this airbag suspension ripped out of here and just start getting it prepped to put the coilovers in. All right, so I just ripped that airbag suspension setup out on here. If you're dealing with factory struts, it's pretty straightforward, almost the same thing. You got 3 bolts up top you take out, and you get the 1 bolt at the bottom, and they can be a little tricky. You do not have to pull the control arms or anything off to do this. All you have to do is just kind of push down, and you can sneak everything out. So this upper control arm is pretty beat. The ball joint's beat. The bushings are beat. We are going to replace those. We're going to do all brakes, tie rods, everything. We're not going to do it in this video, so pay no attention to this stuff. But next step up is to start to prepare the coilovers themselves to be installed. So we're going to assemble them. We're going to put the top bracket onto the coil itself, and you got to put it on, put the bolt through, torque that bolt to between 50 and 70 foot-pounds is what Aldan recommends. That's a pretty broad range. Split it, go right down the middle, 60 foot-pounds, but suspension components, when you can, if you can, you do want to torque them, especially something like that, like an upper shock mount, because if that comes off, you're going to have a pretty bad day. You are going to reuse the lower bolt, so be prepared. If yours is not in good shape, just order some up. I'm pretty sure you can still get these right from Ford. And I would recommend using a new nut because the nut is a lock nut. We're going to reuse the old one for now. I didn't order them. I didn't prepare ahead, but you definitely should because there's a nylon in here, and nylon lock nuts are only supposed to be one-time use. Once you tighten them, the nylon gets distorted, and that's it. You really should replace it. So once again, you can order those up. I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to get the shocks assembled, and then we'll start installing them. There's a little bit of a procedure on how they want you to install into here, and it should be straightforward, so let's just keep going. So one thing to quickly note on this is to save you a little bit of grief from torquing it all down and having to take it back apart. I like to have the adjusters facing out. Maybe you want to have them facing in, but might make it a little difficult to get to. So if you want the adjusters facing out, you have to pay attention to the top plate because the bolts are in a 3-bolt pattern. If you put this top plate on this way and then put it on so the center bolt is the opposite way of the adjuster, you're going to end up having to put it in like this. So just pay attention, save yourself a little bit of aggravation. Take the top plate. You want to put the bolt that lines up with the center of the slots towards the adjusters. slide it on, use the supplied bolt, washer, lock nut, torque it down, and then we can slide these right in. All right, so one thing the instructions don't cover that we did, if you watch the video with the rear suspension, it's the same. You want to add about 1 inch of preload to the suspension. And it may be a little bit difficult to do out of the truck, but we're going to get it as close as we can before we put it in. So basically, what you got to do is you want to tighten this up until it just touches. So you can see that it's touching, but not really putting any load on here. And you want to measure the threads or at any given point, and you want to adjust the spanner down 1 inch. So you'll measure, I like to go by the threads because it's an easy point, and right here we have 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to want to tighten this down until we go to 1 3/8. I'm going to grab the Allen wrench, loosen this up. The kit does come with the Allen wrench to loosen the spanner. And then after that, we'll just add a little bit of preload. Like I said, these springs are very heavy because of the 6-liter. I might not be able to add 1 inch of preload with this out of the truck. We can always do it after, but I'm going to do my best. That way this truck's not just sitting on the ground once we get it installed. All right, now that we got the shock all assembled, we got the preload set, what we're going to do is take this top plate, and it's a little stainless plate, goes right on top of the factory cross member. And then you can drop 3 bolts in. Then being careful not to scratch the shock. Feed it through. You may need to push down a little bit to get it in there. And then you want to make sure that you use the thick washers on the underside with one of the lock nuts supplied. You definitely want to make sure you use the hardware supplied with it, because these are special lock nuts and they're thick washers that are purpose built for this application. Okay, so once you have those top bolts started, definitely leave them loose, because you want to have a little bit of wiggle room here to get everything all situated and get it all aligned. You want to make sure that the shock is lined up. The 2 eyelets on the top of the shock are in line with each other. Otherwise, it can make it really difficult. But get that spun. You got to use 2 of these supplied washers that came with the kit. They're thick washers. These go between the shock and the control arm. What I would recommend, if you're not doing this on a lift with a spinner jack, you can get a little floor jack, put it under the lower ball joint, and you can just kind of very gently lift the control arm up into place. I mean, you can do it by hand, but it makes it a little bit tricky to get washers and bolts and everything else aligned while you're also trying to hold this up at the same time. So, like I said, you can just take a floor jack, put it right under the ball joint, and then just slowly lift the control arm up into place, and it should slide right in. All right, now all that's left on here is just torque the upper bolts. You want to make sure everything's aligned. There's a little bit of adjustment here. You kind of move stuff back and forth a little, get it as close as you can, and then torque these to 25 to 35 foot-pounds. All right, besides some adjustment, this side is all done. So I'm going to move over to the other side. I'm going to set the camera up, do a little bit of a time lapse. The other side is identical to this side, so just follow all the instructions on that, and you should be good to go, hopefully. It depends on how good you follow instructions. So I'll set that camera up. We'll get the other shock put together and just bang that other side out. right, guys, that's it. I mean, this is a pretty simple install. This is probably going to be one of my shorter videos that I've done. Obviously, having all of this stuff off makes it a lot more accessible, but it really doesn't change the difficulty of this job. As far as ride height goes, we're not going to adjust the final ride height until we have all the weight on the truck. Right now, it's a little bit low. I might have to add just a little bit more preload to the springs, but I'm pretty happy with how it's sitting right now. As far as all the adjustments on compression and rebound and all that, Aldan has some great stuff on their website and some great videos that explain compression, rebound adjustments, why to do that, when to do that. And we're not going to get into that right now because this truck is pretty far away from being driven on the street, and that's when those adjustments are really going to make a difference. Maybe down the road, once we get this thing going, maybe I'll make a brief video kind of touching on that stuff and showing how each one affects the truck and why you would want to make an adjustment. Aside from that, that's it. We're going to take this truck, temporarily roll it out. We're going to bring the orange truck back in. I got a regulated return fuel system to do on that. I have a turbo to do on that. I got a bunch of stuff. So we're going to spend the next couple of videos working on the orange truck. Then we're going to get this F100 back in, get this engine just about ready to go, then tear the whole truck apart, get everything ready for paint. So if you guys like this video, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Leave a comment, even if you just say hi. Every little bit helps boost this video up. So I'd appreciate any engagement I can get. And as always, guys, thanks for watching In the Shop.